Barkley, who is coming to us from parts unknown. I don't know where you are, Chuck, but we're glad to have you with us. I know you're not on the Twitter, so maybe you didn't see all the reports over the last couple of hours that basically told us what we now know, that Kevin Durant is going to sign in Brooklyn with Kyrie Irving to completely change the face of that roster. What was your first reaction?
Well, I was surprised. I was very surprised that Kevin went to Brooklyn. Obviously, he's not going to play next year, more than likely. But, you know, some of these teams, in my opinion, getting what they deserved. You know, all these teams put all their money, they stunk up the joint trying to get all this free agent cash, and they're not going to get anybody. Instead of doing their job like Masai Ujiri, who drafted good players and things like that, actually did their job. Imagine that. Then try to poach other players, superstars. I think some of these teams are getting what they deserve. But, hey, KD going to Brooklyn, that's obviously a power ship. It weakens the Warriors. But like I heard you guys talking, it's going to be a year. What they going to do with Kyrie? Because you both had a great argument. They can't just relax and take it easy for a year. But I think that's why they bought in DeAndre. They got some good young players.
In terms of the move from the Warriors, where he won a couple of championships, he was Finals MVP a couple of times. He's got a bunch of business interests in the Bay Area. I hate to play psychologist here, but can you, from the perspective of a great player, kind of put yourself in his head and what might motivate Kevin Durant to leave what seemed like an ideal situation and go to an unproven one in Brooklyn across the country?
It had to be that he was unhappy with some circumstances around the team. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, 100%. He must not have been happy in that situation. You know, there's always been that tension, quote unquote, between him and Draymond. I think, like I say, I think he should have played in that game when he blew out his Achilles. I mean, that might, I don't know. I'm just obviously guessing, but clearly he was unhappy because it was a great situation he was in. So when guys leave a great situation, they must not be happy there, plain and simple.
And he left nearly $80 million in guaranteed money on the table by not taking that fifth year.
I hate when you guys keep saying that because that's absolutely not true.
Well, it is true. You're going to get some of that back in the fifth year, but
of course you're going to get it back.
It's not guaranteed, though. He's coming off a major injury.
Listen. All these guys, I hear these guys leaving money on the table. No, they're not. They're going to sign another deal.
He'll probably sign another deal. I get your point there. I'm just saying, coming off a major injury, you're talking about guaranteed money.
Yeah, but like I say, he clearly wasn't happy there.
Yeah.
Listen, how much money do you think Kevin Durant going to make in New York City?
Plenty.
He going to make plenty of money.
A lot.
Hey, listen, don't forget he's making $30, $40 million from Nike. So let's don't act like when these guys leaving money on the table. You notice that the only guys who leave money on the table who got like a $200-300 million deal with a shoe company are going to make more money in endorsements. So I always laugh when I hear these guys, well, he just sacrificed some money. No, he didn't. Let's be real.
Well, he did leave some on the table. I get your point. He's not going to be hurting. No one's saying that.
But when he signed his next deal, they'll make it up to him.
Yeah. In terms of basketball, 2 years from now, we don't know if Kawhi Leonard's going to be in the Eastern Conference at that point, but how good a team is Brooklyn on paper with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant in the context of the Eastern Conference?
Well, you can't even answer that question because you don't know what Boston's going to do. Danny getting Kemba Walker is a great pickup, but also you don't know what Philly is going to do with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and whoever they sign. I don't think you can just pencil Brooklyn in as the favorite. I mean, think about it. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons aren't going anywhere. So depending on what Elton does with trades and things like that, Philly could be the best team in the East. And you got to give Brad and Danny some credit. Getting Kemba Walker to me is an upgrade. One minute they didn't have a point guard. Now they got Kemba Walker, who's an all-star. But like I say, you're just guessing in 2 years what it's going to be. Like I say, in the main thing, we don't know how Kevin's going to come back.
Hey, Charles, it's Tom Penn. As a former superstar, how do you feel when you see these dollar amounts thrown out? When you see Damian Lillard at $258 million guaranteed over the 6 years, and I know you've gone through this evolution with players, but how does that react in your gut? How do you feel when you see these big numbers?
Tom, we listen. Number one, I'm happy for all the players to make as much as possible because these guys, they're talented, they're terrific, and the NBA, we generate gazillion dollars, TV and things like that. But I will tell you this: I was talking to Larry Bird the other night at the NBA's award show, and we were talking about. I'm so old, Tom. I remember the first time a guy made $1 million. We were going around the locker room high-fiving each other. Because remember when Magic first signed $1 million a year for 25 years? Me and Dr. J and Mose and all the guys were going around the locker room because we could not believe that an NBA player made $1 million. And now you see guys turning down $30 million to opt out. I'm like, ooh, you turn down $30 million, and then you see they're going to get $40 million. It's amazing. Bless these young guys.
Chuck, Sam Mitchell here. I remember that because I almost lost my mind. Couldn't believe that Magic was going to make $1 million a year, like you said. But my question to you is, Kevin Durant, he can be a little sensitive at times, and the New York media is tough. How do you think he's going to handle dealing with the media in New York? Because now all of a sudden he goes from being one of 4 All-Stars to being one of 2, he and Kyrie. And you could arguably say that once he comes back, he's going to be the face of that Brooklyn franchise. How do you think he's going to handle the New York media?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult. I've already been on the record. I think him and Kyrie are both interesting in New York City because I don't know if either one of them mentally can handle the abuse. Because, clearly, because now we're looking at a 2 to 3 year plan. Because, obviously next year they're going to be all right. And then when Kevin come back, they're going to expect to win the championship. And, that normally it takes them a year when guys have the Achilles injury to come back to being full trained. So now we're looking at 3 years. And, those people in New York are not going to be patient. They're not going to be patient at all. So I think it's going to be difficult. I don't think it's going to be as easy as they make it out to be.
Hey, Chuck, it's Mike Fratello. First of all, I thought you and Shaq did a terrific job on the awards ceremony. That's the first thing. And the next thing is I want to go back to your thing about Magic signing that deal. Do you remember when I was coaching in Atlanta and we had a guy named John Koncak, and Detroit got a little mad at us because they thought that we made an offer on one of their players that, we should have just laid low and not bid on him or get involved. So they turned around, and when his contract was up, they offered him $2 million a year for 4 years. And that was incredible that they would offer him that kind of money. We had to make a decision, match it or not. So we had to keep our center, we felt. So we matched the offer of $2 million a year for 4 years. And at that time, it caused an incredible frenzy around the league because there's a $2 million guy now.
Yeah, I remember that vividly. And when we were because, obviously that sent shockwaves around the NBA. But you know what? I think in retrospect, y'all probably wish you didn't match that contract. That obviously is hindsight, and everybody gets it right in hindsight. But I think that always kind of set the Hawks back in the long run. And I think this is where you see some of these guys, people are giving Michael Jordan a hard time because he's not re-signing Kemba Walker. And I said, I actually got no problem with that because Kemba Walker is a very good player, but I'm not giving a guy $200 million not to make the playoffs.
Kawhi Leonard, Chuck, is the next big domino to fall, and we don't know when that's going to happen. Unlike some of these other deals, including Kyrie Irving, which has now also been reported, Kawhi's situation seems like it's going to take a little longer. Toronto may make the most sense basketball-wise. You could make that argument. He's just coming off a championship. If he wants to go home to L.A., would you steer him toward the Lakers or the Clippers?
Well, listen, I'm not going to steer him anywhere. I hope he stays in Canada. I hope he doesn't go to the Lakers or the Clippers. That's just my...
Along with Kyrie Irving, and a man who will be right there is Bleacher Report senior NBA writer. What up, Beck?
What's up, Jared? Anything going on in the NBA today?
Can you take your Skype cam outside, please, and show us the people partying in the streets in Brooklyn tonight?
I'm coming to you on my desktop. I'm not sure I can carry the desktop very far.
Well, Beck, let's get into this here. And Spencer Dinwiddie alluded to it in his tweet that we just showed. The highest of highs for Nets fans and the lowest of lows here for the Knicks, because it's not just simply Kevin Durant reportedly going to the Nets. It's that he and Kyrie are not going to the Knicks.
And they're taking, apparently, according to reports, DeAndre Jordan with them. DeAndre Jordan, who last we saw was in a Knicks uniform, and the Knicks were counting on being part of their sales pitch to get KD to Madison Square Garden. So this is coming apart at the seams every which way for the Knicks, and it is coming together beautifully in every which way for the Brooklyn Nets in a way that I don't think even the most optimistic Nets supporters could have anticipated. I mean, listen, many of us who cover this league have praised the Nets, I think rightfully so, over the last few years for the masterful rebuild that Sean Marks and his staff have done in bringing this team back from the absolute gutter. But, you know, it was a nice, slow, methodical rebuild with nice, solid role players and young guys who had great upside and all that stuff. The idea that they can make a splash this big, this soon, is absolutely incredible. And there's no way, if you rolled it back a year and you asked anybody where the biggest splash of free agency would be, or who was going to get KD and Kyrie, if anybody could even imagined that last summer, no one would have said the Brooklyn Nets, because at that time they weren't even expected to be a playoff team or a winning team, much less a team that top stars viewed as a destination. And now they've got two of the top 12, top 15 going to them. It's an absolutely incredible turnaround.
Beck, what do you think the storyline will be tonight and into tomorrow and maybe for the next several weeks about why Durant appeared to veer course and go to the Nets when all signs pointed to him being a match made in heaven with the Knicks?
Well, I don't know about match made in heaven with the Knicks, but certainly all of the buzz around the league for the last 6 months was that if Kevin Durant was leaving Golden State, and everybody believed he was, that it was going to be to go to the Knicks. And then it became KD and Kyrie to the Knicks. That it changed, I mean, listen, you know me, I have asterisked and caveated every discussion of this for months with, but we just don't know. Guys can change their minds. We won't really know until we get there. And that's where we are today. And I think, you know, listen, we can only speculate at the moment. We'll learn more, I'm sure, very soon. I have to believe that as Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were assessing the landscape and where they could go together, if that was their ultimate goal, as it seems to be, they had to look at what the Knicks had versus what the Nets had and just saw, listen, this is a team that's further along. It's got a better roster. It's not even an argument. It's not even, a matter of opinion. The Nets are objectively better. They are objectively further along. They have a better supporting cast to join. And I think especially if you're Kyrie Irving in this transaction, it's even more important because remember, he'll be spending this first season as the only star on this team. KD's going to be rehabbing from that Achilles for the entire season. He won't be stepping on the court most likely until October of 2020. So if you're Kyrie Irving and you know that you've got to carry it by yourself, you'd rather have the supporting cast that the Nets have than the Knicks, who won 17 games last year, and there is not a single identifiable player on there that you know for sure is a foundational player going forward.
Howard, I'm conflicted as to how much fans care about the relationship that professional athletes have with the media, but I think in one area you may agree that it is relevant is how that affects them dealing with the pressure and the scrutiny that they will be under on a daily basis. Certainly both have played in massive media markets, but do you think that there's anything to how we monitor Durant and Kyrie and their overall happiness and how that plays out with that nonstop media coverage?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, as we know, both of these guys have had their moments of being a bit testy, not just with us in the media, but with fans on social media. Both these guys certainly have their antenna up and they know what is being said about them at all times. And yeah, I think it's more intense in this market than elsewhere. But Jared, I've said this many times. I think the New York media thing is a bit overblown. Kevin Durant's coming out of a market in the Bay Area where they had a ton of people covering the Warriors. And certainly there was a lot of scrutiny and some criticism. And it's no different here other than they'll also put you on the back page of one of the tabloids and Photoshop you into a clown suit. Like, that's the major difference. The criticism, the things that might be said or written about you are the same here as anywhere else, except the tabloids will turn you into a cartoon character. I don't think there's much difference other than that. The other thing I will say, and I don't know if it factors in at all, but the Nets are kind of the below-the-radar team here. The Knicks, no matter what they're doing, no matter how bad they are, the Knicks get 98% of the NBA coverage in this market. And the Nets, they only had 2 traveling beat writers the last couple of seasons, despite all of the media here. That may well change now, I imagine, given who they'll have. But the Nets have always been the team that, you know, if you're playing for them, you're not getting nearly the amount of scrutiny and coverage as if you're playing for the Knicks.
So the Nets are going to reportedly get a player who, at the very least, in Kevin Durant, won't play for all of next season as he recovers from a ruptured Achilles tendon. You've got a guy in Kyrie Irving who has had a chronic knee problem that has cost him significant chunks of his relatively young NBA career. With all of that said, and the young core with LeVert and Dinwiddie and Jared Allen, what do you think the immediate expectations will be for this Brooklyn Nets team?
Probably unreasonable. I mean, I'll wait till Vegas sets their over-unders and everybody starts trying to crown them something. I don't think they should be miles better in year one than they were this past season. I mean, they had a pretty solid season just this past season. They were the 6th seed in the East and put up a decent fight in the first round before going down to the Sixers. They'll be better with Kyrie over D'Angelo Russell, assuming Kyrie has, good health. But they're saying goodbye to a bunch of role players here to make the room for these two guys. And so they're going to have to rebuild the supporting cast a little bit. And again, year one, it'll be Kyrie and a young supporting cast. Now, some very good players. Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen. That's a really nice core to build on. Janan Musa, if they can keep him, if they don't have to send him out to make room. They've got some good young pieces. I don't know that we should be expecting them to crash the party up top with the Milwaukee Bucks, the Toronto Raptors, if they keep Kawhi. But that's the other part of this, Jared. There's so much fluidity right now in the NBA and at the top of the East. We don't know what the Boston Celtics are really going to look like with Kemba instead of Kyrie and with no Al Horford. We don't know how many of the Bucks role guys are being re-signed. We don't know if Kawhi Leonard is staying. We don't know if the Sixers are keeping Butler and Harris. So there is some opportunity for the Nets to make a move up there. But yeah, year one, it's Kyrie and most of last season's Nets and no KD. So I don't think until Durant comes back, we can all of a sudden say these guys are in the mix to be contenders.
Real quick, Howard, 30 seconds of this one. With all that said, with all this injury risk, this was worth the reward for the Nets to bring on these two?
I guess we'll know in a year or two. And that's the interesting thing about this part. Normally you sign two guys of this stature, you are the automatic winners, and we're all saying Sean Marks is Executive of the Year, and he may well be. But in the near term, this is a move with a lot of risks. There's a lot of fireworks associated with this, but a lot of risk. And near term, I don't think we know exactly what the payoff is because we have to see what Kevin Durant looks like when he eventually comes back, probably about 14 months from now.
Howard Beck, senior NBA writer at Bleacher Report, in the epicenter of the basketball world right now, Brooklyn, New York, USA. What up, Beck? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jared.